welcome to the Chamber's Government Affairs Forum featuring United States Senator Edward J. Markey. My name's Jim Rooney. I'm President and CEO of the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, and it's a real pleasure to welcome back Senator Markey to the Chamber's Government Affairs Forum. Now, Senator, I know you have prepared remarks, but before you come in the room, we took an informal poll on the Red Sox trade, and I'm sure that you'll work into your comments your thoughts on the trade of Rafi Devers to the San Francisco Giants. So he's shaking his head, if that's any indication. Thank you all for being here this morning on a Monday morning. I know it was quite a busy weekend for everyone. I do want to recognize one person in the room, my friend Marcel Vernon, the CEO of the Convention Center Authority, who this week will be hosting 20,000 people to the Bio Conference, and I know you'll do a great job. Now, as glorious as watching the Red Sox sweep the Yankees and all of the festivities that occurred around Father's Day, the Pride Parade, and so forth, I'd like to acknowledge an event over the weekend and join the many organizations, I know chambers of commerce across the country, in reflecting on and condemning the politically motivated attacks in Minnesota. As we wake up Monday morning in America, having experienced the assassination of Speaker Melissa Hortman, her husband Mark, the attempted assassination of State Representative John Hoffman, his wife Yvette, that's troubling. That's horrific, and I know that this business community and business communities across the country are just sort of reflecting on that and thinking about political violence and acknowledging that any type of political violence just has to stop for the future of our communities and our democracy. So I'll leave that at that. I do want to take a few moments to highlight some upcoming Chamber events. On June 18th, the Chamber will host the fairly new President of Boston University, Dr. Melissa Gilliam, at our Women's Network Luncheon. That's on June 18th, so if you have time to come and meet our new BU president, a fine institution here in Boston, would encourage you to do that. On June 26th, the Chamber is co-hosting an event with my friends at the Massachusetts Business Roundtable in McKinsey. The event, Talent and Competitiveness, will focus on the many strategic opportunities that can be seized by the business community, and you can find out more about those and other Chamber events at bostonchamber.com. Almost ready to welcome Senator Markey to the podium, but I do want to acknowledge and thank a few of our partners. Thank you to our friends at Comcast who help bring the government affairs programs to a wider audience. And finally, I want to thank our longstanding sponsor of the Government Affairs Forum, Bank of America. Thank you to Bank of America and Mihal Chamberlain, Chamber Executive Committee member, and the entire Bank of America team for their partnership and all of the goodwill that they spread throughout Boston and Massachusetts. With that, I'm pleased to welcome Brian Grip, Public Policy and Government Relations Executive at Bank of America, to introduce Senator Markey.
Thank you, Jim. Well, thank you, Jim. Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here for the Chamber's Government Affairs Forum featuring U.S. Senator Edward J. Markey. For 20 years, Bank of America has been proud to partner with the Chamber, which is hard to believe it's been 20 years. But the Chamber the forum is a fabulous opportunity to convene policymakers, business leaders, community leaders to hear from state and city officials. So on behalf of our Bank of America team, many of whom are with us here this morning, I'm honored to introduce U.S. Senator Edward J. Markey. Senator Markey has a prolific legislative record on major issues across the policy spectrum and a deep commitment to improving the lives of the people of Massachusetts and our country. Standing up for the priorities and values of Massachusetts, Senator Markey is a consumer champion and a national leader on energy, environmental protection, and telecommunications policy. Elected to the Senate in a special election in 2013, Senator Markey continues to bring his experience, energy, and expertise to advocate for all the people of Massachusetts. Senator Markey was born and raised in Malden, Massachusetts, and before his congressional career, he served as a member of the Massachusetts House of Representatives. I had a chance to let the senator know I started my career back in the early 80s, had a chance to meet some of his staff at that time who were really wonderful people, terrific people, and I remember them. They also had a great softball team, just for the record, they really did. So, Senator Markey, we are thrilled to have you here with us today. Please join me in welcoming to the podium Senator Edward J. Markey.
Thank you, Brian, so much. Thank you for all the work that you do, Bank of America does, for our community and for our nation. I used to only hire staffers based upon their softball ability. So that explains why we used to just dominate, and we continue to do so even today. My latest hire last week, he just started with me, was the slot receiver on the Jackson State football team who just got a degree from the Kennedy School. So it's a perfect combination for my staff. So I thank you, Brian, and remember your long service with Judge Gregg when he was in the United States House and Senate. And I thank all of you for inviting me here. And my old friend Jim Rooney of the Rooney Irish aristocratic family. It's not an oxymoron. There is Irish aristocracy. The Rooneys are it here in the city, and we thank him and we thank all of you for everything that you do for our great community on an ongoing basis. My career origin is in serving in the House of Representatives with Tip O'Neill. And he was the Speaker, and I was a young congressman. And what Tip O'Neill used to say is that all politics is local. And we all agree with that. Except that in the era of Donald Trump, all politics is loco. And we have to adjust to that as well, because the impact that it has upon our economy, upon who we are, is absolutely profound on a daily basis. And so what we're talking about here right now is that as we gather, and Jim already made reference to this, is that it's absolutely critical that we band together as a community, that we band together with our allies in other states, because there is a very destructive economic plan which Donald Trump is seeking to implement. And Jim's leadership has helped us to band together in order to have a united response. And we are very grateful as he reaches across other states, other chambers of commerce in our nation, to have a common voice in terms of what the impact this plan would have. And as we gather, there is profound uncertainty, chaos, crisis in Washington and in our communities, which are not just background noise, but daily reminders that the values that we hold most dear, freedom and opportunity and access, are under relentless attack. The headlines speak for themselves. But behind each of these policies are real people, real consequences, real threats to our most vulnerable in the communities that we live. But it is in moments like these, when the ground feels unsteady, that we must draw closer to one another. When our institutions are tested, it is our relationships, our shared values, our unwavering commitment to community that becomes our strongest common defense. And no place understands that better than Massachusetts, because time and again, Massachusetts has shown that we know how to lead, not just with innovation our policy, but with compassion and courage at the same time. We take care of each other, we show up for each other, we don't let go of the principles that define us, no matter how strong the headwinds may be. No one bullies Boston. That's why we're so proud that Harvard is standing up and fighting and defending all of those values which are so central to who we are as an identity. That's why we're so proud that Wilmer Hale is the first law firm up and fighting for the principles that we believe here in Massachusetts. It is why it is so critical that as a common voice, Massachusetts, the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, all of you are standing up and fighting for what it is that we believe in. It's why we were so proud that 100,000 people showed up on Boston Common just 8 weeks ago with the Indivisible rally to march over to Boston City Hall. It's why we're so proud that 100,000 people showed up on Saturday for the No Kings and Pride rally. That's who we are. It's a combination of pride and resistance to a king who thinks that he can dominate us and tell us what to do. That's our community coming together. And that is what we have to continue to fight for. At the heart of all of this is the Massachusetts advantage. It's our business plan. It's the business plan that knows how to anticipate. No one knows how to anticipate better than Boston. We did so when we said that the British were coming. We have been initiating this cutting-edge view of what has to happen for 250 years. To be first in clean tech and biotech, in high tech, in healthcare, in biosciences, in education, that historic shot heard around the world has become groundbreaking shots in arms during pandemic. The moon shots to find the cure for Alzheimer's. That's who we are in Massachusetts. That's what we pride ourselves on being. And these are the cutting edge industries of the 21st century. So the Massachusetts business plan for our economy is very simple. Number one, we create an educational system that draws the smartest people in America and around the world to go to school here in one of our 100 universities. That's our business plan. And that business plan has a second part of it as well. We then encourage them to stay. We encourage them to stay so that we will then connect them to funding, which will then help them with their new small startups that can grow into the Vertexes. They can grow into the other companies that are so central to who we are as a state. And per capita, we are the highest venture capital state in the United States. That's what makes us attractive to these young people to stay here. 3, we support immigration. And we support the foreign students that come to our universities, our schools, our workforces. We roll out the red carpet to welcome all of these young people to our shores. And 4th, we give these entrepreneurs, these industries, access to the best educated and best workforce in the United States. We have the best educated workforce in our country. And we're still not happy with where we are, but we're ahead of 49 other states. Now, all of this is now under attack. So let's just go to the way in which our system works here in Massachusetts. 10% of Massachusetts students come from Massachusetts, but 35% of MIT graduates stay in Massachusetts. They come here, and that includes 45% of their graduate students stay right here from MIT in Massachusetts. 22% of Tufts students come from Massachusetts. 43% of them stay here in Massachusetts. That's our business plan. 80% of the Chinese students at MIT stay here in the United States. Do we want to see them go to Rome or London or Montreal or Toronto or to Paris or to study, or do we want to keep them here? Our business plan is to keep them here. So all of this is under assault by Donald Trump. Last year, we received, just in Massachusetts, $3.9 billion from these foreign students, the 82,000 foreign students that come to Massachusetts, that we then try to find ways to keep them here. All that's under assault right now by the Trump administration, our business plan. In venture capital, last year we had 28% of all venture capital in the United States was right here in Massachusetts, second only to California. And we link the investors to the inventors. We link the professors to the producers. That's our business plan here in Massachusetts. And it is all under assault. So let me just go through the big picture. In the bill that passed out of the House of Representatives, they cut $762 billion from Medicaid. What does that mean for us? That means that of the 7 million people that we have in our state, 2 million of those are on Medicaid. We call it Mass Health. 2 million of 7 million people are on it. For our hospitals, that's a major funding stream that pays the bills on a daily basis. For 230,000 disabled people, that's how they get the care which they need. For 2/3 of people in nursing homes, that's Medicaid. That's who pays the nursing home bills, and half of the people in nursing homes have Alzheimer's. Medicaid, we call it. But it's nursing homes, it's 50% of all children who are on Medicaid, it's the funding for hospitals. $762 billion is cut in their bill. Josh Hawley is saying it's political suicide to cut Medicaid. I agree with Josh Hawley. And we're going to have that battle in the United States Senate now that it's passed through the House of Representatives. Because of the way in which they constructed their bill, there is a $500 billion cut to Medicare. Medicare also pays the medical bills for the hospitals in our community. It's the way in which seniors gain access on an affordable basis since 1965 to the hospital system of our nation. When Newt Gingrich cut Medicare dramatically in 1997, within a year and a half, the Malden Hospital folded, where I live. The Revere Hospital folded. The Stoneham Hospital folded. It happened all across the Commonwealth because Medicare is what pays the bills that then keeps the emergency rooms open, the ICUs open. So let me just continue. $762 billion is cut from Medicaid. $500 billion is cut from Medicare. $300 billion will be cut from the Affordable Care Act, which is the mechanism by which we filled in the gaps that makes it possible for us to have the lowest rate of uninsured people with health care in the nation. They cut $300 billion there as well. They want to cut $300 billion from SNAP, from the healthcare, the food program that helps to feed the poorest amongst us, including children. And they want to cut $500 billion from the clean energy tax breaks, wind and solar, all electric vehicles, battery storage technologies that are at the heart of the clean tech revolution that has 120 to 130,000 people in Massachusetts working in the clean energy sector. And if you add it all up, it comes out to about $2 trillion, which they then package as a tax break for millionaires and billionaires. So this business plan, which is at the heart of who we are as an economy in Greater Boston, is under direct assault because it is who we are. Its education is the foundation, and then out of it comes these other industries with high percentages of immigrants working in those industries, founding these companies, which has created a 30-year boom in our economy. Now, I've been proud to serve on the key committees in Congress over all those years. Yes, making sure the funding for NIH went through, served on the committee. Making sure the clean energy tax breaks and programs were put on the books, serve on the committee. I serve on the Education Committee in the United States Senate, fighting to make sure the Pell Grants, the student loans, all those programs that create the social mobility for young people, regardless of their race or income, to be able to rise up to participate in this incredible economic engine which we have created here in Massachusetts. So it's a plan, and it's a plan that I'm very proud of, because when I started, there was no Kendall Square. All there was Genzyme. And you had to know Henry Tamir's name, and that was it. You knew the whole biotech industry. The clean tech industry didn't exist. And I could go all the way down the line. You needed a plan. Now, if you want to think of this in its most chilling way, China now has a plan. And China is targeting biotech. China is targeting clean tech. And what Donald Trump is doing with his direct attacks on the NIH budget, on the Department of Health and Human Services budget, on Medicare, on Medicaid, on the Affordable Care Act, he is essentially, Donald Trump, gift wrapping the future, biotech and clean tech, and sending it as a present to the Chinese. Because they will beat us if they have a plan, and we don't have a plan. We will beat them if we have a plan. And we engage young people in our nation to meet this challenge, especially that disproportionate number of young people who are here in Greater Boston going to school. And so even TripAdvisor or Wayfair or Google or Amazon, they're all here. They're all here for one reason, our universities. They're all here because we have so many young people who can go and work for them. So we are a multifaceted economy, all driven by this educational model. And I'll just say that I'm working with Republicans in Washington on saving as many of those clean energy tax breaks as I can. I'm working with Republicans in Washington to save as much of the NIH budget as is possible. And I'm optimistic that we can do so. I'm working as hard as I can to save the NPR and the PBS budgets from being completely gutted by the cuts coming out of the House of Representatives. That is as well an essential part of our identity here in Boston and across the nation. So this is going to be the challenge which I have, which you have, which our delegation has over the next 4 weeks up to the 4th of July. I don't think the Republicans can finish by then. And then all the way up to before we reach the August break, to continue this lobbying effort, to tell this story, to have everyone come together as a common story, not just the Chamber of Commerce here, but all across the nation, explaining this devastating attack. And on top of that, he has these tariffs. We're a port of entry here in Boston for all of New England. There was a story in the Boston Globe about 6 weeks ago that if Trump's tariffs continued as they were at that point, that there would be a 35% reduction in the number of containers coming into the Port of Boston in the month of June. A 35% reduction in the number of containers. That's a threat to us. It might not be quite as bad at this point, but it still is harming our economy. And these tariffs just continue to hang like a sword of Damocles over businesses, especially small businesses. We have 700,000 of them in Massachusetts. We have one small business for every 10 people in the state of Massachusetts. And 30% of all trade is small businesses with the rest of the world. And since we are a trading community, it's higher here in Massachusetts than in other parts of the country. And these small businesses are being threatened right now. And so that has to be ended as well. I actually brought out an amendment, a bill on the floor of the Senate just 3 weeks ago to exempt all small businesses from Trump's tariffs, and the Republicans blocked it. We just have to continue to fight this broad-based, poorly thought-out economic plan which Trump wants to put in place. And I'll just finish up with the future, which is AI. AI in all of its forms can actually be a good, but there's a Dickensian quality to AI. It's the best of technologies and the worst of technologies simultaneously. It can enable, it can ennoble, it can degrade, it can debase. So to the extent to which we want AI to be used by the banking industry or the biotech industry, the clean tech industry, you name it, be great. But on the other hand, we also don't want there to be a supercharging of how AI can compromise the privacy of teenage girls in our country. For one example, last year, 1 in 3 teenage girls contemplated suicide. 1 in 10 teenage girls in America actually attempted suicide. 1 in 5 LGBTQ youth attempted suicide. And the Surgeon General points the finger at social media. AI is only going to supercharge that. And I could go across a whole range of other issues where there's a sinister side to AI. The Republicans in the House just passed an amendment to their big, beautiful budget bill, which prohibits any state regulation of AI for the next 10 years. So I've already announced, and as has Josh Hawley, we're going to be partnering to take out that prohibition on states being able to pass any regulation on AI. And who else am I partnering with? Hell is freezing over. I'm partnering with Marjorie Taylor Greene, okay, in order to keep it out. That's where I am on that issue. And we just can't allow for states to be handcuffed in terms of their ability to regulate the deleterious aspects of AI, while we want all of the best and most productive parts of it. And I'll finish on this part of AI. What the Republicans have done for the natural gas industry is now to try to attempt to kill the offshore wind industry in Massachusetts. To move to AI, you need more electricity. You need a lot more electricity. The natural gas industry wants to kill our offshore wind industry. That would be 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 new megawatts of electricity we were going to plug in. That would help us to have the additional electrical generation capacity which we need for the future. We also, per capita, the second highest installer of solar in the United States. Sounds surprising, but it's an intentional plan which we have. They want to kill that by killing the tax breaks for solar. Now, they're doing this for the natural gas industry. They're doing this for the oil industry. Now, the natural gas industry has a business plan, which is to have more pipelines come in to New England. We actually don't need them. We had a plan that the natural gas industry is seeking to kill. And it's going to have an ever-increasing pressure on our energy prices if they are ultimately successful. So we have to battle that as well. And the AI industry, will it be really coming to Massachusetts? Probably not in a substantial way because the industry needs a lot of electricity. We won't have it. We won't have it. And that's the future cutting edge of technology. So all of this is a part of what, from my perspective, is the greatest battle I've ever been in my political career down in Washington. This is it. This is the showdown over the future, over who we are. And yeah, my father was a truck driver in Malden for the Hood Milk Company, and I'm a United States Senator. That wasn't on the school board when I was a boy. But it should be for every child growing up in our state right now. These immigrant children especially, they should feel they can be whoever they want to be. So what Donald Trump is doing is he's bringing out the Malden in me every day. He's bringing out this fight over all the programs that made it possible for me to be standing up here, for Jim Rooney to be sitting out there as the leader of this group. Wasn't on the scoreboard, huh? And they're directly attacking every one of these programs. So all I can promise you is I'm going to give it everything I've got over these next couple of months to try to make sure that we beat back this revolution that the MAGA Republicans think that they are going to be able to implement through the power of Donald Trump and to preserve for the next generation of Bostonians the same kind of prosperity that we were able to enjoy as well. So thank you all so, so much. Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Okay, we're on. So first, I don't know if others in the audience observed this, and I don't know why you brought those notes, because I didn't see you look down once to look at those notes and rattling off the data, the statistics, and just the knowledge. And it's just an observation and something that I think we appreciate.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to say is...
Well, my mother is happy because my mother always said that she was going to donate my brain to Harvard Medical School as a completely unused human organ. So Ma, you just heard this from Jim Rooney.
So, and, you know, the other point I want to make at the beginning is, of course, our gratitude for you being here today, but on behalf of the Chamber, the business community, but myself personally, over the years, we've made many trips to D.C. You mentioned our work with other chambers. Sat in your office with 20, 25 chambers of commerce across the country about the importance of NIH funding, always available, and even in my previous lives in hospitality and tourism and transportation, always there. So I want to just express my gratitude for all of that. You alluded to several issues that really fall into both the economic space, but also the foreign policy space. Business people think about international political instability, of course, what's going on in the Middle East. You mentioned some of the policy implications around the United States competitiveness. And today, Governor Healy's hosting some folks up the State House from Canada. Talk about foreign policy, international relations, as it relates to the business plan that you so well articulated.
Well, each of us who grows up here in Greater Boston, at some point, when we're about 10 years old, we're taken over to the Museum of Science. And we're told that science is the answer to our prayers. They don't get that message in other parts of the country. We do believe in climate science. We do believe in this biotech revolution. There's a big reason why we are who we are. And around about the time that we're 10 years old, maybe in the 4th grade, there's one chapter in our history, in our geography books, and the chapter is just entitled, Our Friends, the Canadians. So we all get taught the same thing about Canada, the longest unprotected border in the world. So what Trump has done by attacking our trade relations with Canada is that he's taken the country with whom we have the closest trading relationship and casting it a shadow over it. Now, that can include our need for their Quebec hydro electricity, understanding on lobster policy, we'll just say, going across the border up there. Our partnership on climate issues with Canada and the impact along our common Atlantic coast. So it just begins there. This conflict is now continuing to escalate in the Middle East. We got our fingers crossed. We want a peaceful resolution of it, hopefully sooner rather than later. But the longer it goes, again, is the higher the international oil prices are going to go, and it will ripple right through our economy as well as it did in the 1970s and the 1980s. We were definitely the region of the country that paid the biggest price for the doubling of the price of oil. God did not bless us with any oil or gas in Massachusetts or New England, which is why we had a plan for the future of offshore wind and for solar, and battery storage technologies, which would give us an independence, a greater independence from that volatility that we're seeing right now over in the Middle East. That's what we were really trying to do, by our separation from those kinds of conflicts that devastated our economy in the 70s and 80s. So, and you might remember this, the first Middle East war was 1973, 74. That doubled the price of oil, gasoline. And then the Iran hostage crisis, 1979, 80, that doubled the price of oil again. And again, each instance of a recession was induced because of our dependence upon that imported oil. So our business plan has been to try to buffer ourselves. And the more you move to an all-electric vehicle future, is the less dependent you are upon those ships bringing in oil from around the rest of the world, which is why the oil industry is trying to kill the all-electric vehicle and battery storage industry, because we're saying that we don't need your oil anymore. But unfortunately, GOP really stands for Gas and Oil Party. And that's writ large, because they were the biggest contributors to Trump in 2024. But it just draws us more deeply into climate change, into international energy prices as something that we have to become, on a daily basis, very conscious of, and the impact that it has upon us and our economy as a place where businesses feel that they could locate their businesses in a very confident and comfortable way.
Thank you. You talked about the opportunities and challenges of the AI revolution and the proposal for a 10-year moratorium. My question is around the process of getting to pragmatic solutions in the context of the politics that you're engaged in. That seems to be a far-flung kind of proposal, 10-year moratorium on all state regulations. At the same time as we're sitting here, there's 500 pieces of legislation in local state legislators around the country to regulate AI. AI doesn't know geographic boundaries. And so the companies that are going to have to implement this will have to figure out, where am I today? What am I doing today? How does this work in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island? There's got to be a pragmatic solution in there someplace that, in the context of the politics of today, we just can't get to. How do we get to the point where we can sit down and figure that out?
It's a very good question. I was the author of the big three laws in the 1990s that moved America from analog to digital, from dial-up to broadband. So I was the author of those three laws. 1992, my law created the 18-inch satellite dish to put more pressure on the terrestrial communications companies. 1993, I moved over 200 megahertz of spectrum for the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh wireless devices, because AT&T was still analog and 50 cents a minute, and it was the size of a brick. And so We actually prohibited AT&T and the other company, there were only 2 licenses, from bidding for the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th license. So by 1996, only 3 or 4 years later, everyone started to have devices in their pockets, little mini computers that transformed our nation. So this is the AI revolution that my 3 bills, including then the 1996 Telecommunications Act, which broke down all the telephone and cable monopolies. Everyone could do everything, and by 2000, we had something called the dot-com bubble, because there was a broadband revolution that had been deployed. So that's the first phase of the AI revolution. And I made sure that I passed the E-rate that guaranteed that there would be a funding stream so kids in schools in Roxbury, in Dorchester, and Chelsea had the funding stream so they would have the computers on their desks. And when you go into a library and there's computers over there, that's my E-rate, to make sure that people can have access to computers in public schools. I did that to make sure that poor kids had access to the new technology as fast as rich kids would have out in the suburbs. And I also passed the Privacy Bill of Rights for kids under the age of 13, but the industry blocked me from doing it up to age 17, 18. And by the way, a Privacy Bill of Rights for everyone. So now we've reached, we'll call it AI stage 5, okay? Just keeps getting more and more powerful. And the industry says, don't regulate at all. Don't put any safeguards in. But of course, we believe in capitalism with a conscience here in Massachusetts. We believe that there should be protections, for example, against AI being used in a discriminatory way to determine who gets housing, who gets an education, who gets a job, because the algorithm is only as good as who wrote it. And you just can't allow for the supercharging of that kind of discrimination to move over online. Huh? You have to have protections built in. And it surely is going to start here. And it surely is going to start in California. And the industry wants Congress, led by Ted Cruz, to block it from having any regulation at all. But of course, the price is too high to have all of those potential benefits, perhaps still find the cure for cancer. But there's no doubt that discrimination will happen if there are no safeguards. Right? So we have to try to do both. And we, as an economy, we are kind of the pluperfect form of what happened after my 3 laws passed in the 1990s. That is our economy now, along with biotech. We're not just the Bay State, we're the brain state. Right? We are the digital state. We are the educated state. Right? So that was the plan which I had in moving those bills in the 1990s. I knew that we could capture it. But I also know that we have a concomitant capacity to be able to build in the safeguards simultaneously. That's our responsibility for, we're only 2% of America, but we're not an ordinary 2%. We know that we can be the richest state, which we are, but we also can be the most educated and the healthiest, which we are, because we make sure that the poorest get access to what they need, and we're still not happy with ourselves. But we also know that we can build these safeguards in. And AI is going to be a huge challenge. But if we don't do it, and we don't do it right, we could see a technology which takes over our society rather than a technology animated by human values. That's always our challenge. An automobile is great, but we have to pass laws to make sure it has brakes, that it has airbags. And the same thing's going to be true for AI. We need the equivalent of airbags and brakes that we build into the technology in order to make sure those safeguards are there for every family, no matter how vulnerable.
Thank you. Senator, I mentioned in my opening, we're hosting the BIO conference. In addition to your fingerprints being on some of the technology innovations and as well as the growth of that industry, your fingerprints on the growth of life sciences and biotech in Massachusetts. We're host to 18 of the top 20 pharmaceutical companies in the world. Talk about the balance between supporting those industries with the cost of medicine and retaining a dynamic, thriving life sciences ecosystem. And to those 20,000 people in that industry gathering in Boston today, what's your message?
Number one, we're going to fight very hard to preserve NIH funding at $48 billion a year. We're going to fight very, very hard to do so. We're going to make sure that that basic medical scientific research continues. Vertex is a few blocks away from here. It wouldn't exist if Francis Collins did not receive an NIH grant to find the cystic fibrosis gene in 1989. Otherwise, there is no Vertex business model because the basic research was done by the federal government. And that same work is occurring right now in disease after disease after disease, the basic research. And then on top of that, all of the advanced research. So Vertex has 1 million square feet here right now, an Empire State Building size of real estate. But it all started with the NIH grant that Francis Collins won, who then became the head of NIH. And Moderna, for example, Moderna, when it made the COVID breakthrough, it was based upon NIH research in mRNA technology. That was all basic research. And actually, Moderna just stands for mRNA, Moderna. Just look at those letters. That's what it is. But it had to be invented. It had to be developed. And then based upon that, Moderna actually invests $4.5 billion a year in new research that goes right through our economy, $4.5 billion. Now, let's just contrast that with the NIH budget, which we receive about $3.7 billion a year. But that funds hundreds of basic research projects all across our region, making the breakthroughs that then lead to these larger companies, including Moderna, spending billions a year on top of that in our region. And so that is our business plan, and that's why they want to come to Boston. That's why they're going to go to the convention center. And thank you for hosting it. So it's 20,000 people from around the world who have to come to Boston because of our business plan. And as Trump seeks to cut $3 billion in basic research from Harvard and other institutions, it's a direct attack on our business plan because those young people are doing the basic research to make the breakthroughs that then lead to these huge real estate towers that get built all around Greater Boston and all around the rest of the country. So again, the Chinese are looking on in wonder that we would destroy something where we have a clear lead over them at this point in time. But there's no guarantee that we would hold on. It's taken 30 years to build it, but it could get destroyed in just 2 to 3 years. And that's what all the CEOs of the companies are telling me. We could just have this ecosystem start to shake at its foundation from the seismic threats that are being posed to it, which is why, again, I'm working so hard across the aisle with my Republican colleagues, with Susan Collins, with Lisa Murkowski, with others to preserve this funding at the levels which is needed in order to keep these young people from around the world and our nation continuing to do the basic research, which is so central to finding the cures, but also the economic growth which is attached to it. So NIH is really the National Institutes of Hope, giving hope to families that we will find the cures for Alzheimer's, for cancer, for diabetes, and God didn't make just red or blue diseases, okay? And that's why I'm hopeful that we can find a negotiated resolution of this issue before we pass the final legislation this year.
So you mentioned earlier our work with other chambers around the country, and we have 73 chambers in 33 states across the country advocating for research funding. We'll be back down to see you soon with a fly-in, and would appreciate your advice on sort of strategy around that effort when we get there. But I'd like to end where I began, on a lighter note. Your thoughts on the Raffy Devers trade?
Wow, huh? Did we just beat the Yankees 2 weekends in a row? I look at these 3 rookies who have come back. Actually, it's 4 rookies. Or is it 5 rookies? We got the kid Dobbins. He just beat the Yankees twice. He's a pitcher, right? We got, we've got Roman Anthony, who looks like he's the reincarnation of Fred Lynn. We've got Marcelo Meyer, who looks like he's the reincarnation of Wade Boggs. We've got the kid on second base, Christian Campbell, who looks like he's the reincarnation of Dustin Pedroia. We have this catcher, which we got for nothing, who may be the best player on our team. That's 5 incredible rookies. It reminds me a lot of Jim Rice and Fred Lynn and Carlton Frisk and Dwight Evans all coming up at the same time. So my answer to you is what it is that we have here in Boston is we're incurable. We still know we can win, even without Rafi. But I do know this. I'll finish up on this. I might not be happy with the trade, but it still pales in comparison to trading the biotech and the clean tech industry to China for nothing in return. That would truly be a sad day for Boston. Thank you, Jim. Thank you all
Senator
so much
Edmond.
for having me here.
Thank you.